This film is worse than... Wait, no it isn't. Well, it isn't any better than... Yeah, it is. War of the Rohirrim is stirring up a lot of talk amongst film and Tolkien fans alike. Lots of discourse seems to be negative, and I can't really imagine why. Well, I guess it's time to mount up and ride forth into the field of film critique. Is War of the Rohirrim more slop that Hollywood has combed from an intellectual property, or is it a genuine film with creative integrity? Let's talk about it on this episode of Studio Cinema Saturday, the show where we review films old and new, the ones that you don't like and the ones that you do. I'm your host, Jackson Hamm, and today we're talking about The Lord of the Rings, The War of the Rohirrim, directed by Kenji Kamiyama. First, I'm going to start off with some general non-spoiler thoughts. So with all the buzz that this film has, I think that first I need to say it's not as bad as everyone is saying. It's no perfect film by any means. It does have some pacing issues around the midway point, and some characters that aren't as fleshed out as others. What this film offers is a great tale from Middle-earth that, while shifting the point of view from Tolkien's original writings, maintains many aspects. After all, Peter Jackson is a producer on this film, and I'd say it takes the same approach that he took with the original Lord of the Rings trilogy in maintaining the integrity of Tolkien's books while editing some content and shifting some parts around, while giving other characters slightly more to do. Quick side tangent. Being an adaptation, I'll take this moment to talk about them as a whole. On the page, an author has much more freedom to flesh out background, details, and the world abroad than a screenwriter does. Film uses sound and sight and has to blend them to make an engaging piece of media. So, in the adaptation of a book, much of it is left on the page. This is where screenwriters and filmmakers have to take the dreaded creative liberties. Now, there are terrible creative liberties all the time, but I think directors like Denis Villeneuve and Peter Jackson have both accomplished making an adaptation very well with Dune and Lord of the Rings, respectively. Maintaining the purpose of having an engaging film and respecting the source material while staying true to its core. Now, back to our original programming. Coming back with War of the Rohirrim, I'm going to talk spoilers now. While looking at other thoughts on War of the Rohirrim, I saw some videos that focus on Hera, played by Gaia Wise. So, let's talk about Hera, who is a warrior at heart and in skill, but is stifled by the male-dominated world of her time. She's told her purpose is to marry and bear children. You know, classical literature stuff right here. Of course, through the film, she proves herself and becomes a shield maiden of Rohan, which sounds very similar to another character we know from Lord of the Rings by the name of Éowyn, played by Miranda Otto, and her voice actually narrates parts of the film. And I don't remember any of us being upset by Éowyn back in the day. Now, one might say Éowyn had 2 films to reach her peak as a character, and I say to that, she was a side character. Hera is the main protagonist, so of course her journey is complete in one film. And I'd say she also struggles along the way as well. While she can wield a sword and ride a horse, she is a woman of Rohan after all, and was introduced being proficient in these skills. She later has to take on a leadership role which she did not sign up for, trying to make the best decision possible for her people. Now let's pivot to talk about her father, Helm Hammerhand, played by the wonderfully talented Brian Cox. I very well think this could be my favorite performance of the film, as he manages to play a kingly presence while also being a hardened warrior who could strike down an enemy with no second thoughts. He also has what is probably one of the coolest moments of the film, killing a man in one punch. The villain of this film, Wolf, played by Luke Pasqualino, is seemingly at first glance a standard bad guy. Upon further inspection, you'll find a young man led astray by the ways of his father, who upon rejection, followed by the accidental death of his father, embraces his ways and eventually falls to depths below them, eventually becoming what you could say is a true evil. And I love that in a film where you could use simple concepts of good and evil, good guys, bad guys, Wolf is more than that. He's a little more dynamic, and I appreciate that. Overall, I think the plot of this film, while being basic, works because of the interpersonal drama between all the characters. Though there are a few points where I think the pacing of the film comes to a complete halt, and instead of breathing room, you could get a couple of winks of sleep. Also, being connected to Peter Jackson's Middle-earth, you get some really fun Easter eggs, though I'm not entirely sure if you could call them Easter eggs, because it's not just a reference, it all plays into the lore of the film and the plot at hand. Though there is one that feels like a please clap now moment, and that's just a mention of Gandalf's name. The Saruman cameo, on the other hand, plays great, I think, as we do see Isengard in this film, which he does inhabit, and we see where his relationship ends up with Rohan in the original Lord of the Rings films. I'm going to touch on the score of this film now. Composed by Stephen Gallagher, but also utilizes original themes composed by Howard Shore. The music uses that classic Rohan theme very well, but goes beyond because Gallagher builds upon it and even breaks down that music that you could definitely hear evolving into the original Rohan theme. Another film that had an epic original score to live up to this year was Gladiator 2. And I expressed in my review that I was disappointed with how they used the original themes in that film. War of the Rohirrim does what I would have loved to hear, and that scores major points in my book. Lastly, I want to talk about the animation in this film. Now, I am no anime expert, as I've only seen an episode of Attack on Titan and bits of Cowboy Bebop. That being said, I love the animation of this film. It manages to be both beautifully detailed and simplistic at times, lending to the story and elevating it. All in all, in my humble opinion, this film is not Hollywood slop combed from an IP. From the screen, you can tell it was creatives making a film, and for some who worked on it, dipping their toe back into a world they helped create. Is there room for improvement? Sure, but if this is a sign for things to come, I'm slightly more optimistic for the future of Lord of the Rings. And that's why I gotta give this film an 8 out of 10, bringing us to the end of this video. If you liked this video, there's plenty of other episodes of Studio Cinema Saturday. You can also check out our sister show Television Tuesday and our new show, Buying a Film Its First Drink, where we've covered such films as Hulk 2003 or Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King. Also, be sure to go check out our short films here, because we talk about movies, we make movies too. And if you enjoyed, please like, subscribe, and comment what you thought about War of the Rohirrim. After all, film is subjective. And thank you for watching.